God, the compassionate, the merciful. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to our session on teacher digital the digital environment. Prior to commencing this session, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of TESOL Arabia for all their arrangements, kind support, and organizing such a brilliant event. Likewise, my words of appreciation extend to my co-presenter, dear Zahra Banitalebi, for all her attempts and endeavors and investment in the domain of assessment literacy in the digital environment. And this study titled the breakdown, actually did the digital assessment literacy, okay, a missing linkage between technology and assessment literacy. We are going to look at how the experience of today's digitalized world, prompted by the breakout of the COVID-19 pandemic and a shift to online classroom, has affected the way assessment literacy has been defined. And it's been argued that COVID-19 pandemic has changed classroom practices in a way that we will never return to pre-pandemic days, even in the post-pandemic era, as the understanding of the current needs and requirements of today's teachers' competencies will ultimately help in delivering efficient classroom practices, assessment practices. It is of utmost significance to investigate the needs and competencies required of teachers to be assessment literate in the digital environments. For this reason, this presentation is aimed at presenting the basic concepts and terms within digital literacy, as well as discussing various competencies a teacher in a digital environment will require. So the issues we will see through will be the concept of assessment literacy, language assessment literacy, different models pertaining to assessment literacy, and then these parts will be covered by me. The remaining parts will be covered by my co-presenter, dear Zahra, giving us further details pertaining to the use of the digitalized words, digital assessment literacy, and we will concentrate on our own study, what we have done so far, and the training required, and we will definitely offer some suggestions for further research. Okay, to begin with, let's talk about assessment. All right, you know that there are some key concepts like testing, assessment, measurement, and evaluation. Test as a measurement instrument designed to elicit specific samples of individuals' behavior. Measurement, the process of quantifying the characteristics of individuals based on explicit rules and procedures. And evaluation, a systematic way of gathering information for the purpose of making decisions. And we all know that assessment is the umbrella term encompassing test, measurement, and evaluation. So referring to various ways of collecting information regarding the mastery of individuals in order to make decisions. So assessment, from the perspective of Black and Williams, okay, refers to such activities undertaken by teachers or their students, which will provide information to be used as feedback. This provision of feedback is a lot significant to modify the teaching and learning activities in which they are engaged. Okay, and actually, as for the next, assessment literacy and language assessment literacy, the starting point of assessment literacy dates back to the 1990s, when a close alignment between assessment competence and assessment literacy was formed by the work of Stigin. Stigin was highly influenced by the standards of teacher competence in educational assessment of the students, and coined the term assessment literacy and described the characterization of an assessment literate person as the one who knows a full range of achievement targets and assessment methods. In a seminal work actually on assessment literacy, Stiggins highlighted that assessment literacy forms the backbone of quality education and sound assessment practices. And within the realm of, a broad ranging field of assessment literacy, a particular interest in language assessment literacy emerged by the work of several scholars. We have had the contribution of Davis, Fulcher, Enbar, Lurie, Pull and Hardin, and Taylor in particular. So to begin with, Inbal Lori has defined language assessment literacy as having the capacity to ask and answer critical questions regarding the objective and purpose of assessment, about the fitness of the tools, being used, and about what is going to happen on the basis of results. We had, other, definitions and the perspectives regarding language assessment literacy from the perspective of Teseguri, Wagat and Teseguri. They had defined it as the ability to design and develop and critically evaluate tests and other assessment procedures, as well as the ability to monitor, to evaluate, to grade and score assessments on the basis of their theoretical knowledge. So Taylor was also among the scholars who first talked about language assessment literacy. All right, and next we have had Taylor 2013, as you can see, has argued that assessment literacy has been defined distinctively for, from the perspective of different stakeholders, classifying the stakeholders into 4 groups: classroom teachers, policymakers, test writers, and university administrators, and professional language testers. Taylor has suggested that classroom teachers need intermediary levels of assessment literacy, signifying and denoting training in measurement, in practical skills and ethical principles. As you can see in the figure, this figure shows the required assessment skills and knowledge required for classroom teachers across different dimensions of assessment literacy. Assessment literacy models now, since its conceptions, scholars like De Luca et al., like Geraldo, like Pastor and Andrade, like Zhu and Brown, they have attempted to generate models of assessment literacy focusing on its various aspects. So we are going to mainly talk about the last one, Zhu and Brown, but I will give you a synopsis. Zhu and Brown, was, and their model, with the first one, Zhu et al., Zhu and his colleagues, okay, their model consisted of a multitude of dimensions, okay, teachers' knowledge base, conceptions of assessment, institutional and sociocultural context, assessment literacy in practice, learning and assessment identity. As you can see, we have also had Pastor and Andredes model, as you can see, very much similar to Zhu and Brown's conceptualization of assessment. They presented a model of assessment literacy including conceptual, okay, praxeological, and socio-emotional dimensions. And the conceptual dimension including teachers' knowledge and conceptions of assessment, while other 2 dimensions derive from the practical and social aspects of assessment. Geraldo 2018, and we were so much inspired by Zhu and Brown's model and Geraldo's model in our own study. Later on, dear Zahra will give full, representation of their models in our own study. Geraldo conducted a conceptual review of the literature and proposed a 3 component or 3-componential list of language assessment literacy, and including different dimensions of language assessment literacy raised in the previous models and dimensions. As represented in the figure, as you can see, there are 3 major components which configure and constitute a concept of language assessment literacy, namely knowledge, skills, and the principles. And these components will give rise to other dimensions which are explicated in terms of 66 descriptors. Knowledge, the first one, and knowledge in this framework is composed of 3 dimensions: awareness of applied linguistics, awareness of theory and the concepts, and awareness of our own, language assessment context. Next, skills. We had 3 dimensions. The second one is the skills. As the second component, it includes 4 dimensions. We've got instructional skills. We have design skills for language assessments. We have skills in educational measurement and technological skills. All these skills will focus on planning, utilizing, and interpreting the assessment tools in the actual practice of assessment. And finally, we've got principles. Principles call attention to the concepts of fairness, bias, and ethics in language assessment. Since 2 years ago, I have concentrated the vast majority of my, assessment studies on test fairness and classroom justice. brilliant area of interest, and areas for research and investigation. And as we can see with regard to language assessment literacy, these principles focusing on ethics, fairness, bias, ethics, power relation issues, they are really, focused on. And this model, according to Geraldo, this SMC has not been fully recognized in the field of language assessment, despite a lot of attempts and endeavors, as I can see since let's say some years ago, unlike its wider practice and status in the sister field of education. All right, what we have learned from the literature or the lessons, okay, we have been so much inspired by the extant studies found in the literature and the studies we have, and I have, highlighted. So these previous studies have revealed that teachers feel unprepared for the multifaceted tasks of classroom assessment, owing to the inadequate training they have received during their teacher education programs. And Kristen Combe et al. In their 2020 study, they had confessed and highlighted this one. Likewise, we have had the contribution of Tesegeri and Yan et al. 2018. So as contextual factors affect the conceptualization and operationalization of the concepts and practices of assessment literacy training measures should be carried out that would respond to particular educational contexts as well as environmental factors of the teachers. Language teachers are required to keep up with the challenges arising in classroom assessment through constant professional development courses. Like in the morning session, we had a session on community of practice, okay, CO, and it was really, really important. And we, I think such professional development courses are really for mainly if you're concentrated on language assessment literacy development. However, such development is unlikely unless the teacher's contextual needs are considered or taken into account. Okay, Martin and Mulwihill, they believe that there are four concerns, there are four issues that have risen to the top of priority list as teacher educators work to overcome the challenges of COVID-19 and its aftermath, and increased focus on equity, promoting digital competence, addressing learning loss, and supporting social and emotional development. So the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic has widened the social and economic inequalities, which adversely affect the quality of teaching, learning, and assessment of students in many different parts of the world. To ensure equitable classroom assessment, it is significant to intentionally design assessment coursework that it would expand pre-service teachers' digital assessment literacy with regard to culturally responsive assessments and fairness in the use and interpretation of assessment data. As rightly pointed out by Kristen Combe and Davidson, how advancements in technology have affected the nature of assessment and consequently the meaning of assessment literacy in a gap in existing research. In particular, research needs to incorporate the requisite technological competencies of today's awards teachers as assessors to refine the definition of assessment literacy. All right, so what kinds of technological advancements are we talking about? Tablets, cell phones, so on and so forth. I'd like to invite dear Zahra to continue providing us more information regarding the technological advancement, and then with regard to digital competences required by the teachers and teachers' digital assessment literacy. I'd like to hand in the floor to dear Zahra, and I'm done with this part. Thank you very much. I'll be back at the end of the session and I'll take care of questions and comments. Thank you all. Dear Zahra.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, well, yes, so what kinds of technology advancements are we talking about? Tablets, cell phones, social media apps, and easier access to computers and laptops, augmented reality, virtual reality.
Can you share your video as well? Sorry for the interruption.
Yes, sure.
I cannot see you. Thank you, dear.
Yes, sure. Okay, computer delivered tests and artificial intelligence, learning analytics, and the ever-increasing availability of online classrooms. So, so given today's varied and vast applications of technology in teaching, another aspect of assessment literacy has been introduced to the field of education, that is digital assessment literacy. The concept of digital assessment literacy first appeared in the literature by E.L. 2012. E.L. coined the term to acknowledge that the 21st century calls for a new set of skills and knowledge to get the most out of different technology-enriched environments to fulfill various assessment purposes. Digital assessment literacy is used to refer to the competencies required on the part of the teacher as an assessor in a technology-rich environment. And teachers in digital environments need to acquire knowledge and skills to help in the selection and use of assessment tools. So you might ask what we mean by digital environments, and the answer is any environment that has access to technology. It can be online classrooms, synchronous and asynchronous, and usual face-to-face classrooms in which teachers can use technology, just laptop, internet, and so on. Okay, EL defined 3 levels of digital assessment literacy based on a sociocultural approach, ranging from basic to advanced competencies on a continuum. Basic level digital assessment literacy refers to the use of learning management systems for traditional assessment practices. And intermediate literacy level describes a competency or a wide range of digital assessment tools and awareness of performance criteria for the evaluation of tests and tasks. And the highest level of digital assessment literacy based on constructivist social learning is attained when the teacher is capable of delegating the process of assessment to the student in the appropriate form and time to help them become reflective and self-regulated. Okay, well, although operationalization of such continuum in actual practice requires further investigation, it also study is important in that it highlights the skills and knowledge of digital technologies to realize assessment literacy dimensions in technology age. And moreover, it accentuates the need to foster wise use of technology in the process of assessment and calls for professional development courses aimed at developing digitally assessment literate teachers. Okay, and well, we talk about the digital a lot when we discuss digital assessment literacy. So is digital assessment literacy the same as digital literacy? Let's have a look at the definition of digital literacy and its underlying competencies to see the difference. Digital literacy is the ability to understand and use information in multiple formats from a wide range of sources when presented via computers. And according to Digcom Edu, a framework for digital competence for educators, digital literacy includes the following areas: professional interaction, digital resources, teaching and learning, student assessment, extending students' rights, opportunities, and independence in the learning process, and lastly, development of students' digital competence. Okay, well, as you see, digital literacy is a broad concept that does not cover the particularities of digital assessment literacy, but teachers' digital literacy does include aspects of student assessment, as you can see here in number 4. Okay, so relying on such gaps, we decided to investigate what digital assessment literacy in language classrooms, and digital literacy skills remain in the assumed knowledge basket. However, the gap between an ability to access the web versus the ability to effectively utilize the resources available to achieve required outcomes remains really vast. And the assumption of the intrinsic nature of digital literacy skills remains the largest barrier for those who need those skills. So what does digital assessment literacy entail in language classrooms? We conducted a qualitative study to answer this question. The data were collected from an open-ended questionnaire and a set of interviews investigating the perspectives of 27 participants, 12 experts, and 15 EFL teachers about the role of technology in assessment literacy and the required roles and competencies on the parts of teachers to conduct classroom assessment in technology-enhanced environments. So the participants taking part in this study were selected based on kind of convenience sampling, and they comprised 12 experts, and by experts we mean researchers who have published papers in assessment literacy and or digital assessment, most of whom were also teacher educators teaching assessment courses as well, and 15 Iranian EFL teachers who used digital technology in classroom assessment during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, and well, the findings. The findings inferred from content and thematic analysis of interview and questionnaire data reflected teachers raised awareness as a result of COVID-19 pandemic experience, which resulted in an understanding of new approaches to assessment and increased value of digital assessment literacy. Further, as compared to the existing literature on assessment literacy, roles and competences underlying digital assessment literacy corresponded to 5 main sub-themes, namely teacher as knower, implementer, confident technology user, moral agent, and learner. And okay, and regarding assessment, regarding the first one, they our participants refer to a wide range of assessment specific knowledge. Both experts and teacher participants were referred to knowledge of formative assessment, feedback, scoring, interpretation, and communication, and assessment concepts such as reliability and validity. And regarding the second sub-theme, implementer, it encompasses the roles and competencies assigned to teachers as implementers of classroom assessment, as in planning assessment practices, designing assessment tasks, and implementing assessment with technological tools while dealing with the constraints and affordances of their classroom context. And the interviews emphasize that teachers need to understand how to select and use technological tools for assessment activities that are in line with their policies and demands of their school context. Okay, and technology user, well, clearly by implementing assessment in digital environments, which is the focus of the previous sub-theme, teachers also rely on their technological competence. However, this sub-theme pertains specifically to teachers' competencies and roles in digital environments in using technology to its best benefits, highlighting the significance of effective assessment over the mere use of technology in assessment. And a moral agent, well, this sub-theme indicates that teachers indicates teachers concerns about unethical practices which are more likely to occur in digital environments, such as like cheating, plagiarism, and identity misrepresentation. And the interviews particularly underscored the differences in morality issues between face-to-face and technology enhanced classes. Transferring from face-to-face to online classes, teachers realized that with the availability of the internet and lack of physical observation, cheating was more likely to happen, which would be a barrier to fair assessment. And the interviews emphasized teachers' role in ensuring fairness and equity of assessment in digital environments. And lastly, the teacher participants and experts also expressed their dedication to continued professional development as one of the rules of assessment literate teachers in digital environments. This sub-theme incorporated the role of teachers as perpetual learners who need to learn how to integrate technology in classroom assessment through participating in training courses, workshops, conferences, as well as asking expert colleagues and experientially utilizing some technological tools. So finally, findings speculated a potential role for technology in the concept of assessment literacy. This study can provide teacher trainers, educational policymakers, and course designers with implications for designing teacher development programs to integrate digital assessment literacy in training courses and enhancing the effectiveness of technology in assessment. Okay, there are also several studies by other researchers. Some of the recent ones are presented here. What is common among all of these studies is that COVID-19 has changed our classroom assessment practices, and several elements accounted for the
Zahra,
type and frequency of change.
sorry to interrupt you, but we have only 4 minutes to wrap up.
Yes. Okay. Well, there are several factors that affect this kind of change. Like, for example, the kind of the conceptions that the teachers have, what the technological facilities they have, and okay. And now, so what? Well, we expect teachers to use the digital technology they know in assessment in the same way that we expect them to use technology in their teaching. And we need teachers who are digitally assessment literate, and we expect teachers to be digitally assessment literate. But this all needs training. Okay, and there are some suggestions for further research, like doing some longitudinal studies on assessment literacy and digital assessment literacy, investigating the relationship between teachers' conceptions of assessment and their assessment literacy, investigating teachers' training needs, and the effect of contextual factors on teachers' assessment literacy and the quality of teacher education programs in training digitally assessment literate teachers, and also the effect of assessment literacy on students' achievements. Okay, that's it. If I'm ready to answer the questions.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much, dear Zahra, and thank you very much, dear attendees. I don't know if we've got the time to take care of your questions and comments. The moderator of the session, you're at your service.
Yeah, 3 minutes, if I'm not wrong.
I hope you have enjoyed.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes.
We've got 3 minutes. So if there are questions, yes.
To wrap up the session, you have only 3 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, any questions?
Have highlighted the significance of assessment literacy. There are sorts of misconceptions, like considering, digital assessment literacy as another branch of assessment literacy, whereas, digital assessment literacy, has been actually a sub branch of assessment literacy. Like the relationship between assessment literacy and digital assessment literacy in the digital environment and the type of competencies required on the part of the teacher. There are significant issues that I think avid researchers can take care of. And dear Zahra talked about, actually presented some suggestions for further research. I think there are brilliant avenues for further investigation. Okay, I have no other point to be added unless, the attendees, have got questions or not. If not, okay, we can close the session. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, TESOL Arabia organizers in particular. Once more, I'd like to thank dear Melanie for all the support she provided for us. Thank you very much.